we have a weekly Halo game with all the Penny Arcade guys, and I logged on, and the first thing I said when I got to the mic was I started singing that, and then when I was done, there was a silence, and all of a sudden Kiko goes, "Okay." It was really cool. I wanted to come out to music, and so they're like, "Well, you can go back there," and I'm sitting back there, and I'm like, "Oh, I can watch the trailers too," and it's dark back there. But the games are cool, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's a medical thing. Maybe it's like, you know, carpal tunnel, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm like, oh, ghosts, that's scary. Well, hi, I'm Scott Kurtz, and you guys all get to be at my first ever panel at PAX. Last year, we were having dinner afterwards, and Jerry said, "I think we should see more of you at PAX." And I said, "Well, I'm coming every year from now on." Because last year was our first year. He goes, "No, I think you should do a panel." And I'm like, "Awesome, yeah, I'd love to do a panel. That'd be great. I mean, if you guys are cool with it." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, we should do a panel." Mike's like, "Yeah, absolutely." So a year's passed, and I see online they're saying, you know, we're taking submissions for speakers for PAX. So I message Ku, and I say, "Well, what should I do?" And he says, "Well, you know, you're in, but go ahead and go through the official system so that email will go to Amber, and then it's in her system, she won't forget." So I go to the system, and it's like, you know, "What's your name?" "Scott Kurtz." "What's the name of your panel?" "An Evening with Scott Kurtz." "Description for your panel," and I go, basically I go up there, and I'm just, you know, smart ass, and I talk about myself, and then I take questions, and it's going to be awesome because I'm quite good. And I send it off, knowing that as we get closer to PAX, I'll get an email from Amber saying, "Hey, I need the description for your panel for real." So like a month ago, it's like, "Hey, PAX speaker, your schedule's up," and it's like, now that is the official description. And so I'm like, "Amber," I'm like, "Why did you let that go out? I look like an asshole." She's like, "Oh, it sounded like you." So yeah, I guess I don't have to worry about what that panel is. Now I know. "Welcome to the unicorn room." Yeah. "Who's that?" All the straight rooms were booked. I wanted to be in the IK room, but don't be mad at me. We were constructing that joke outside. Brad's mad at me. And so I'm like, all right, what's the room that I want to be in? And we're brainstorming, I go, "What about the shut up faggot?" And then we all go, "No, that's cool to say with your friends because they know you're not homophobic. But if you say it up there, then Brad gives me this look like, if you don't say it, I'll know you're weak." So now I've kind of said it. Right? Shut up faggot. But no, tonight, there's a couple things I want to talk about, and then I don't know how many of you have questions. How many of you actually have questions for me? All my friends, screw you guys. All right, awesome. Well, how many of you are unfamiliar with me? Kristen? All right, good. Well, the first thing I want to talk about tonight is kind of my origin story. I was bitten by a radioactive fat guy. Maybe I'll get powers. Just gotta eat this. No problem. That joke would have gone much better 2 years ago. But I've always wanted to draw comics since I was a kid. I guess I always drew as a kid. But my mom, back in the '80s, bought me the first Garfield collection. And this is back. I don't know if any of you have seen like the first Garfield strips. But they're very different. They're almost kind of odd. You know, Garfield's very creepy looking, and John's kind of weird, and you almost got this subtext of like, I think Garfield like wants to kill John. Like, you know, the story is like an elderly lady was found dead in her home, and her cats were eating her face. Garfield was like that kind of cat. And
it was funny too.
His what?
It was funny too.
Hey, now listen. I'm going to defend Garfield right now, okay? Garfield is as funny now as it was in the '80s. You just got older. I'm not here to argue with you. I'll tell you what you're thinking. But so, I was hooked. I was hooked. It was the 4th grade, and I said to my mom, this is what I want to do. I I want to make my own characters and my own comic strips. But I don't. The only thing I don't know how to do is I can write my jokes, but I don't know how to make my own characters. So I'm going to email Jim Davis, and I'm going to ask him, Paul, what are you doing back here? Come on. Paul, my friend Paul. So I'm email. Did I say email? Did I just say email? Yeah. I'm going to write Jim Davis and ask him if he will come up with my characters for me. And I wrote him a letter and I sent it off and he never responded. And I was like, I'll never do that. When I'm a cartoonist, I'll always be accessible to my readers. Always. I always will. Always answer all emails. Sorry. But I'm talking to you now. I'll take your questions. But so anyway, I was really hooked, and I just, ever since I've been making my own comic strips. So I did it all through high school and college, and you know, the basic things you do when you're a cartoonist and you're growing up, and everyone thinks that you're awesome, and you know that you're okay, but you're the only cartoonist they know, and so you really haven't met anyone else that does what you do, but you know somewhere else, another town is another high school with their cartoonist they think is awesome. And then in college you kind of meet the other like 5 cartoonists from the area that end up at the same college, and then you're like, I'm good, and then yo, we're the cool guys who do cartoons. And then you do the same, you all do the same strip in college. It's about dorm life. Sorry for you with webcomics about dorm life. But anyway, so out of college, getting married, and then in '96, I'm not trying to bring the room down, it happened, my mom died. And I was like, done with drawing. You know, she gave me Garfield, I'm done, I'm out. And the drawing board just sat there. And I was like, I don't need a cartoon anymore. And then I started playing a game called PvPOnline. Yeah. And that was back when mass phones were like frontier. That was the wild, wild west. It was like work for all your stuff, and then someone could kill you and just take it off your body. Just like, mine, thanks for all the armor and stuff. It was crazy. But it was very interesting because it was the first time I saw like this community built around a game. Like the game was public and there's this community around it, but they're all talking and they all know each other and they have these online meeting places, and the people making the game were actually talking to the people playing the game. It wasn't just like we make it and then it's do what you will with it. It was, we don't like the way this is running, okay, well, if we change to this, they'll exploit it, and it was like a back and forth, and it was exciting. I mean, it was, as a creator, I think I appreciated it on a different level, because it was so exciting to see that. It was almost, not quite a collaboration, but there was some collaboration there. And so, we got angry about some change they made, and I made a comic strip about it. And I sent it to a friend, and then he sent it to one of these UO fan sites. And they posted it, and posted my email, and my inbox just was flooded. And I was like, oh yes. I remember cartooning. This is immediate. They love me. This is like high school, but I'm popular in every high school. So, fuck the jocks. The time has come. So my first comic strips were about PvPOnline. They were, this is really embarrassing. I needed a character name for my bard, and I'm like, I need a fantasy name. I'll go to Google, or well, I wasn't even Google then. I just looked up fantasy names, and one of them was Samwise, and I never read Lord of the Rings. Like, I skipped it, because all my friends in high school were like, you've got to read Lord of the Rings. I'm like, yes, yeah, Frodo, and Bilbo, and then fucking 6 chapters on the language of the elves. What is Aragorn? What happens next? So I never read very far into it. It's like, and then Frodo, you know, this reminds me of the language of the elves. I mean, why are falcons big? Let's talk about it. So I had no idea Samwise was this Tolkien name. So I'm like, my bard's name is Samwise. That's a really cool name. And maybe it's an English name. I've never heard of it. So I had this comic strip called Samwise, and I guess enough people hadn't read Tolkien. They were like, oh, that's a cool name. Oh, awesome, awesome. But then, like, the movies come out, you know, and I'm like, thank God I'm not drawing that comic anymore. It's like, come on, dude, Samwise, why don't you just call him Bilbo? But this is how I'm going to fill this hour, right? I'm just going to ramble up one side and back down the other. You'll never get to the point of the story. So, do not take my photo. Don't, no, I'm just kidding. But there was just this visceral and immediate reaction. And not only that, but like the designers of the games are emailing me like, hey, here's a code, you know, your friends want to play, you know, blah, blah, blah. And let's do this. And I'm meeting them at different places, and there's UO gatherings in Austin, and I'm getting tour Origins, and I'm like, this is amazing. And I just felt that amazing power of, like, here's cartooning, and what I thought it was going to be with the syndicates, and I sent off a package in junior high, and I was designing syndicate submission packages, but here's everything I thought cartooning was going to be, or could possibly be. And then here was this other thing, and I was like, shit, I gotta make, you know, this happen. And maybe I didn't put that much thought into it. Maybe I was just excited to go, you know, I made a picture, and then everyone's like, we love you. And I'm like, I like it. I grew fat, thanks for liking me. I'm not really on my way, I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm burdening you guys with that.